Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So you may remember the story we talked about. It's been a couple of months, but this Tom Moore guy, the 100-year-old World War II vet from the UK, who raised something like $45 million for Frontline Workers. Evidently on Sunday, he was admitted to the hospital with coronavirus. And it's just, it's again, another one of these horrible moments. But good on him and I wish him the best, and I know everyone else does. But for me, the sooner we can get through all this, the sooner we start doing what we need to get done, the better. Also, some other good news. The Biden administration has put some funding forth for these new rapid at-home tests, which I guess you can get the results at home within 15 minutes. I guess they're going to be something like $30 a test for, I guess back in December they were like $30. They're now going to be, I guess, cheaper, and we're going to get them out. And this is how we whip this. This is how we start moving in the right direction, get the vaccine, tons of testing, stuff that should have been done months ago. And I'll tell you, we've struggled with this way too long. This has been way too long in the doing. And sadly, it's the people on the front lines who have been hit the hardest. And I'll tell you, I don't know how airline flight attendants deal with it. I don't know how bus drivers and train operators and our public transit folks deal with it at all, because I know I wouldn't. I'm here to share some thoughts on, what needs to get done and what Congress needs to do to help our transit industry. I've asked Greg Regan to come talk with us. Greg is the Secretary-Treasurer of the Transportation Trades Department of the AFL-CIO. Greg, thanks for taking time for us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So, I talk about this all the time. I don't know how bus drivers deal with people who are just defiantly not willing to wear masks. I don't know how flight attendants do it. I don't know how people put up with it. I literally would be strangling. I'd be in jail by now if I had to deal with these people on a daily basis. It's just one of those things that's amazing to me.
Yeah, they've been truly on the front lines dealing with the worst, not only of the pandemic, but of sometimes it's turned into the worst of human reaction in many of these situations. I know everybody is stressed. I know there's a lot of pressures, both economically and socially on our country, but we need to make sure these people are protected. We also need to make sure they have their jobs, because they're helping us see through this right now.
Absolutely. And the thing I remind people of, especially on the public transit side of things, those frontline heroes, those people that we were putting up on a pedestal, those essential workers that we were praising back during the heat of the pandemic, when things were closed down, who we've now kind of forgotten about and clawed back anything we were giving them. If it weren't for public transit, a lot of those people don't get to work. A lot of those people don't get to the hospitals, to the grocery stores. And they were the people who I think suffered a great bit of loss. And now we're talking about gutting their funding, slashing their jobs, and kicking people to the curb.
Yeah, it's really a shame. I think, we've exposed a lot of things here during the pandemic in terms of failures of our own society. But I think the lack of investment, lack of recognition in terms of what our frontline transportation workers bring to our country is one of those things. And if you look at transit in particular, in major cities, DC, where I live, or New York City, they are the ones, to your point, helping get our healthcare workers to the hospital, helping make sure that people are able to get drugs they need, get food. And, they're not going to be able to continue to do this without the right sort of federal support and state and local support as well. And it starts with Congress and it starts with the administration, both in terms of mask mandates and health and safety regulations, but also in terms of economic support. We need to make sure that we are providing a backlog here, a real funding upfront to make sure these systems are staying functional throughout the end of this. And without that type of support, ridership is down necessarily. People are doing their jobs by staying home in many regards. But the systems themselves are integral to our successful reemergence from the economy and our successful ability to see our way through this difficult time right now. So the federal government needs to show the leadership. We're hopeful that we can get another bill done here real soon that will address the needs in transit and Amtrak and aviation. And that we're going to find a way to make sure that when we emerge from this through the vaccines and through the end of this, that we are going to be a healthier have a healthier transportation system and have a way that we can see our way through this.
No, you're right, but it's not just New York and Washington and the big cities that need public transit. I mean, I know people in small communities like where I live, who go into Harrisburg, who need public transit to get to those jobs at the hospitals and at the grocery stores, who have seen the services cut back and seen their ability to get to and from work become much more difficult, and obviously their lives becoming much more difficult, which is why we need to absolutely do something. But here's what's really frustrating to me. I see, today you've got these 10 Republican senators who go to Joe Biden with their plan and not a dime for state and local governments, which in my view, I guess, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but that means not a dime for those transit systems, unless there's some part that, the subsection B of quotation A or whatever. I don't see any money in there to help transit systems.
No, there's no money in there to help transportation broadly, not transit, not state and local government. It is, in many ways, they're saying, okay, here is one problem. We're going to try to solve this one problem. We're going to say, okay, we'll give more money for vaccinations or something along those lines. They're ignoring the underlying issues that are actually going to help us really successfully get out of this stuff, which is investing in our state and local governments, which is all the services that people are being provided, whether it be social services or others. It means making sure that we have the infrastructure in place to make sure we can emerge from this successfully. And to your point also earlier about smaller transit systems, you're 100% correct. I mean, these are in many cases areas where they've already been starved of funds. They've already had severe reductions in service, and they are the people who are being hurt by these reductions in services, and people are being hurt by a lack of opportunity in their transit systems, are the most vulnerable people. They're the people who need it the most. And that is not a situation that we as a country should be proud of.
No, I'm right there with you. But one of the things that I was saying from the beginning, right out of the gate, and our friend Sarah Nelson, president of the Flight Attendants Union, she was integral in getting this into the first bill, this payroll support program that kept, airline workers, receiving their paychecks on the payroll, no layoffs through, I guess it was through October is what it was. A very visionary idea, of which I wish they would have expanded to all workers. And we had the summer to come up with it, and we failed at every avenue for that. Is there a way to get some of this into this? Is there language being discussed in the Biden plan that you know of? And how do we make sure that we get that pushed through for not just airline workers, but all workers?
Well, we have pushed to make sure that there is, in this next plan, that there will be an extension of that PSP program, just continuing that through and hopefully get us through the end of the summer so that by that time we'll see bookings back up. We'll see a return of the industry, people that are going to be able to travel in a way that they would have before the pandemic. We're pushing for that same type of job protection language for Amtrak to make sure that they can continue their service and bring their workers back and pay them what they were making before. We also have worker protections on the transit side too, to make sure that the money that's being put into the system is done in a way that promotes service and employment in these systems, because ultimately those are the people who are going to be hurt the most by any funding shortfalls and by the drop in ridership are the workers. And we cannot be in a situation where all of a sudden people are vaccinated and there's no transportation infrastructure left for them to use. That's just unacceptable. And what we did in the CARES Act, I was proud to work arm in arm with Sarah on this one, was we made it not about a corporate bailout. We focused the money on the people that are being directly hit. It is about keeping people attached to their payroll, to their benefits. Their certifications are up to date, because especially in the airline industry, if you leave the industry for a month, it is very difficult to go back. You have to go through all the certifications again. So this is it was a vital program. It's one that we're proud that we've been able to continue through both the bill that was passed in December after CARES Act, gave it a little bit more money there. We're hopeful we can get it done in this next bill too. And again, not just make it about airlines, but Amtrak and transit as well. And I think there's a roadmap to seeing us through the end here in a way that avoids some of the catastrophic both corporate restructurings or massive layoffs, or all the things we've seen in past versions of these, whether it be a financial crisis or after 9/11, where really all of the losses are taken out of the workers' hide. In this case, through no fault of their own, these people's livelihoods were put at risk. And we have an opportunity to do this the right way, which is make sure that if the government is going to be bailing people out, it's bailing people out and not bailing out corporations.
No, it's what I was saying all during 2008 and 2009. To be honest, we shouldn't give a dime to corporate America. They're the ones who screwed this stuff up. We give it to the workers that are affected by it so their livelihoods don't change. And if corporate America can get the money out of them and they can survive, good on them. So look, I love the fact that Sarah championed this and you guys champion this. But you're not Magellan discovering new lands. This is stuff we should have been doing years ago. And look, and I say this about our unemployment system on a much bigger scale. I think what I think as a society we've figured out is unemployment doesn't come anywhere near to replacing the lost wages when you lose a job, which is why, even the Republican plan that they took today to Joe Biden has an additional $300 on top of state unemployment, which tells me something and should tell all of us something, that we need to strengthen unemployment for everybody for the next crisis, because there will be another one. But also this idea of creating a program where if this ever happens again, we have a mechanism in place to do exactly what you guys did: keep people attached to their jobs, maybe working, part hours or whatever, but having a program between the companies and an unemployment system that keeps people getting their paychecks, keeps them getting health care, since we seem to be married to employer-sponsored health care, and keep us on a stable path instead of having a hope of a V bounce instead of the K that we're getting.
What you just also hit the nail on the head when it comes to unemployment. I mean, obviously, unemployment insurance is really inadequate in our country, and also it ignores the fact that we're missing out on all of the benefits that we have attached to employment. To your point, healthcare, retirement benefits, a lot of things like that. But the alternative to not getting this done, whether it be PSP or aid to Amtrak or aid to transit, is unemployment. And if people think we're saving money by not investing in these programs, we're wrong, because the people are still going to end up, in a worse situation that are still going to be relying on some form of public service, whether it be unemployment insurance or otherwise. So this isn't, I think people sort of look at a price tag and decide that that's too much in an arbitrary fashion without looking at what we're paying for. And we're paying for, frankly, the health of our country and the ability of our country to emerge from this stronger. And it's depressing when we start, nickel and diming on something like this when it's such a vital time.
Yeah, we didn't see that during the TARP era, did we? We didn't see when George Bush was telling us the economy's collapsing and Wall Street's going to take a major dump. There was no, oh well, hey, maybe we could just give them a little bit. There was, hey, right, whatever you want. Here's a blank check, go. But you keep a single mother in their home and keep food on the table for some. That's a bridge too far.
Of course, yeah, no. Look, corporations are people too, I guess was the phrase back then. But no, you're right. When it comes to tax breaks, when it comes to the previous versions of government bailouts that go directly to corporations without any strings attached, the price tags, people weren't, or legislators or leaders weren't thinking about what's too much. They decided it was too big to fail. But individuals apparently are expendable in this, and that is a real crime.
Yeah. At the end of this for me, and this is where I kind of want to wrap this up, in this world of, if it weren't for our labor unions, if it weren't for Sarah and her organization, and it weren't for the communication workers, if it weren't for your organization, the Transportation Trades Department of the AFL, the machine workers, the transport workers, those folks, even Unite here and a number of my Teamsters union, if it weren't for them, I think we would be in a much worse place, because they brought massive attention to how bad things were in the workplace. So for me, I think the message coming out of this should be, we want our government doing stuff, but we also got to do stuff for ourselves. And I'm hoping that there's going to be a massive spike in organizing happening, especially as we continue to tell the stories of what unions did during this to keep their members safe.
I completely agree. I think there are a lot of people looking around right now in this country and seeing where the efforts of unions and where the AFL and where TTD and others have pushed, and how we've managed to help keep people as whole as we can during this through real advocacy and real efforts on the ground here. And hopefully what that does is start making sure people aren't, one of the things that always bothers me is whenever you see this in a lot of areas where maybe there's a pending strike or something like that, you end up with a tidbit in a story that says a rail worker got paid X amount of money, $150,000 a year or something like that. And then you end up, the implication of that story is that person is making too much for that job. And we need to take that person down. The mindset here needs to be, instead of saying we need to take that person down, is why don't we lift everybody else up? And how do we get to a point where I'm not looking at that number and saying they're not worth it, but talking about what I should be worth and what the value of my job is? And that's the role that unions can bring to all of this, and the ability to raise all of us up and make sure that people are getting paid for the value of their work and for their worth as citizens of this country. And it's been a while. We've obviously been on a downswing in terms of the union density, but I really do think that there is a brighter future for the labor movement and consequentially for the people of this country, to make sure that we are stronger and more powerful and getting into more industries in the future here. So I'm excited about it.
No, I am too, and I think I think this pandemic has opened a lot of eyes. At least I hope it has, and I'm hoping Joe Biden does move forward on making it easier for workers to join and form unions, if for no other reason than to protect themselves during times like this. And again, I think it shows. And I've had stories of unions who've come on here and said, "Look, right at the beginning, we were negotiating for work changes, bigger lunchrooms, staggered start times, redesigning workspaces because we got to keep our members safe." And for me, that's what being a union member is about.
Absolutely. No, it's there are. I think that it's obvious that the strength that unions have brought here have been to really protect their members, and that is the type of thing we want to bring to as many people as possible.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But Greg, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the work you do. What should folks do tomorrow morning to help move this forward?
Call your senators, call your members of Congress. That is always helpful to hear from people.
Call them early, call them off. And Greg, I appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Good stuff. Greg Regan, Secretary-Treasurer of the Transportation Trades Department of the AFL-CIO. You can check out their website, ttd.org. ttd.org is their website. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.